everyone. I'm Rachel here with Ari, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week, we're on episode 286, and we're asking, how do you make your characters relatable? Before we start, if you enjoy the show, consider checking out our coffee page. You can follow the page for free, as we have plenty of goodies for all. And if you're feeling generous, a one-off donation will get you access to more treats, or you can become a Merry Writer for just $2 a month. For that, you'll get access to all the items in our shop, including exclusive goodies, as well as access to monthly bonuses, and it all helps to support the show. But if that's not your style and you still enjoy the show, then please subscribe wherever you're listening if you're not already, and consider dropping us a like if you're watching on YouTube. So what does it mean to create a relatable character? Essentially, you just want to make it so that the readers care about this character. Why should they be on this character's side? Obviously, you want your characters to be liked, or unless they're not supposed to be well liked, which that's a whole other can of worms, but you want them to be relatable enough and liked enough that the readers are rooting for them throughout the story and that they want to follow this character on this journey. Having a relatable character doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be exactly like your readers or exactly like your target audience, but it also just means that the characters are realistic enough that even if it's fiction, even if it's high fantasy, your readers can still sort of put themselves in their character's shoes and make themselves feel like a hero. Essentially, you want to treat your character as though they'll be your reader's best friend and give them something in common. And again, I know that you're not going to know every little intimate detail about every single one of your readers or your audience, but if you can reach, a good amount of those readers, then that's a good thing.
It's not even just the best friend thing, because like, how many times have you heard readers talk about their book boyfriend, where they connect
Yes.
enough to like, oh, that character, yeah, it's like they see something that they would like in a real partner, or maybe, in their own, they see in their own partner and everything. And also we'll talk about the villain too. It relatable in the sense of, if you have someone who drives you insane, who drives you crazy, who makes you annoyed and frustrated and you hate them, or even if you just dislike them a lot, like a co-worker or something, we've all worked with people that we hate, even that's relatable. So even if it's a villainous character or just an annoying character, that can be relatable, because as long as you can sit there going, I really hate that guy. It reminds me of, like, Sharon. Apologies to any Sharons out there. I'm not actually picking on you.
I mean, what you say is so true, though, because obviously, as writers, you don't want to, I mean, I think we all do this, but you don't want to add real life people into your novels to the point that readers that you know in real life can say, oh, hey, that character there reminds me of Sharon. And you're like, yeah, it totally was based off of Sharon, because then that can get you into trouble. And we don't want that. But you want to make sure you want to try to make your characters remind your readers of someone that they know in real life. And again, that's very difficult to do because you don't know your readers, you don't know your audience. But as Ari said, if your readers are like, oh, this character reminds me of this person that I know in real life, or they say, oh, this character reminds me of this person that I know in real life, both are good. The feelings are there. It doesn't matter if they're positive or negative, the feelings are there, and that's a good thing. With that said, how do you make your characters relatable? I mean, basically, what makes a human human? First, I'll talk about motivations and goals. Your characters should have motivations and they should have goals. I mean, everybody in real life has a goal at least one goal that they're aiming for, right? Your characters should have the same thing. What is driving them forward in this story or the plot, whatever? And I feel like a lot of times the goal is the motivation, or the motivation is the goal. The motivation happens because of the goal. Hopefully you're following along. Depending on what their goal is or goals, that will motivate them to reach those goals, and that kind of creates those stepping stones. They can have multiple goals, they can have multiple motivations, and they can be separated as well, because, well, take writing a novel, for example. The goal is to become a full-time author, say. That's your goal. So when you write your book, that goal is motivating you to write that book because you want that career. You want those royalties. However, there are stepping stones that you need to reach there are stepping stones that you need to take to reach that goal ultimately. How do you become a full-time author? You probably need to write multiple books. And if you a few of those books need to be on the bestsellers list, and you need to create like a sustainable income. How do you get to those points? Well, there are different stepping stones. Now, each of those stepping stones are going to come with their own motivations because, well, why do you need to reach the stepping stone? Why do you need to reach the stepping stone after that? And so on. And the motivations aren't always going to be there. Not every day is going to come easy. It's not going to be simple. Some days you're going to struggle. They're going to be difficult. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to reach a stepping stone or the ultimate goal. Motivations can be sometimes hard to come by. And that's something you can show with your characters. Some days are going to be easy for them. Other days, they're going to feel stuck and they're going to stop in their tracks and they're not going to want to do anything. They're going to be completely unmotivated. And that in and of itself is relatable as well.
That's actually a really good point. I never really thought about that because, like, whenever you hear the word goal, it's always this massive thing, but sometimes it can be a really small goal as well, and that you're motivated to go through. It's like, I don't know, that's a good way of doing it, like motivations and goals, because they can be broken down. Your character might be like striving for the pot of gold in the tower, but maybe it's because they've been struggling to pay bills. They're a poor person struggling and they just want to provide for their family. That's relatable. The gold in the tower with the dragon, maybe not, but the pot of gold to pay the bills and to make sure there's food on the table. Oh, well, yeah, I think we've all had motivation for that.
Right, exactly. That's it exactly. But also you want to make sure that your characters have flaws and a little bit of vulnerability throughout the book. And that just goes to show I don't have like a huge explanation for this one, but everybody has flaws. Nobody's perfect, and neither are your characters. You want to be wary of the Gary Sue and the Gary Stu characters and the Mary Sue characters, because again, nobody's perfect and they should have flaws. They should feel stuck. They should have vulnerable moments with other characters in the story. And that all kind of ties into their motivations and their goals, because maybe they can't reach their goal because of a certain flaw that they have, or maybe they can't see their own flaws, or maybe they do see their flaws and that holds them back because they're afraid to move forward or something like that. But you have the motivations and goals, which is a positive thing. And then you have the flaws and the vulnerability, which can be viewed as a negative thing, but it's not necessarily negative because we all have them. Like, it's just human nature.
Yeah, and it's also human nature to go past them, or at least to try, you know. And it can be anything. It can be something small where you have a fear of failure or a fear of commitment. So something as simple as that is considered a vulnerability and maybe even a flaw. Maybe you end up breaking up relationships because you are so scared of commitment that you struggle. And the point of characters is, the story arcs of characters should be for moving one to another. So if they're vulnerable and have flaws at the beginning, some of those vulnerabilities and some of those flaws should evolve and change, and they should get past them. Not all of them, because we need flawed characters, and that's something that as humans we want to do. We might struggle with our own flaws and vulnerabilities, but we want to be able to see, oh wow, this character got through them, I need to get through them. And again, we're not saying the character is the only thing that go, wow, I wouldn't have got through my own vulnerabilities without it, but it helps to see yourself or your own vulnerabilities reflected in a book and make you think a bit more differently about them. And again, just can be something small, but it can just be
Yeah, exactly. I legitimately was just going to say that, and then you said it beautifully. But yeah, no, Ari is right. Your readers want to see themselves reflected as the characters, and that's essentially what makes a character relatable. And if they're struggling with something in real life and the character is struggling with something similar and they overcome it, well, that's inspiration for your reader to overcome that themselves in real life. And that's a good thing. That's what we want. We want to inspire our readers. We want to motivate them. But how do your characters get those flaws, the vulnerability, the motivation, the goals? That all comes from their backstory. And their backstory is something that you need to know inside and out. And that can be done in character profiles. It can be done in character sketches, notes, whatever. Not everything about their backstory needs to be shown in the book. Your readers don't need to know the entire thing. But it's obviously they need to know some sort of backstory. They need to know the origin of the character and why they're doing what they're doing. So that's also important. And especially since, like, if you have a backstory of a character that, I'm going to be really cliched here, if they're going on a journey because their parents just died from this bad guy or who's trying to take over the world or whatever, I mean, that is relatable to some people. That, I mean, everybody comes from different backgrounds. They have different family dynamics. They have different friend dynamics, their careers, their day-to-day life, whatever. You can make all of that relatable to your characters. And it doesn't matter what genre you're writing in, because as Ari said before, you know, them trying to get that pot of gold in a castle. Well, the castle itself, I mean, who's going to go break into a castle? I don't know. Maybe some of you would do that. I really don't know. I don't know any of you. But who's going to find a castle in real life to break into that has a pot of gold lying around? That is a bit unrealistic. But the problem that the character is trying to solve is realistic and can be relatable to many, many people. And that's where the internal conflict comes from, because they're looking at their morals, what's good versus what's wrong. They're looking at their flaws versus their motivations. And, you know, for them to reach their goals, how far are they willing to go to reach their goals? And that's where the internal conflict comes from. And that also draws in from their backstory, because what they've learned in the past, they may be implementing in their life now, or maybe they're not. And that's an issue, but they're doing what they have to do. It's all one big giant, you know, spider web, if you will. All of these things intermingle with each other, and it makes a character. And there are those little points that the web meets in the middle. Those are little pieces that your readers can pick out and say, oh, hey, I can relate to that. That is so real of them to do. Oh, I would do that if I were in their shoes. Or maybe they would say, oh, I wouldn't do that if I were in their shoes. And that is also relatable. If they disagree with something, like, it's okay for your reader not to agree with everything that your character does.
I also like that what you said about how like how things can happen. And the first thing I thought was Batman. Like his origin story was I'm going by the movies, just so you know. I do not read the Batman comics, so if anyone's coming at me because of something was different in the Batman comics, I don't care. I'm going by the movies. His parents were killed in an alley, and that obviously affected him. Nice, good bit of trauma. And then he decided to put on stretchy pants and body armor, depending on which version you watch it, and dress as a giant bat and run around in the shadows, helping people. Apparently, I mean, he was a millionaire. He could have used that, but hey, let's do crime fighting instead. But no judgment. But yeah, now obviously there are people who may have lost their parents. There may be people who suffered a crime. I guarantee they're probably not putting on stretchy pants and body armor and going out to fight it. But maybe they joined law enforcement. Maybe they started a community system. Maybe they did a neighborhood watch. You have people whose family members pass away from an illness, and then they decide to become nurses and doctors. So even something as simple as this origin story, caused massive trauma for your character, and they became, of some like incredible mage that just, ruled over everybody. Maybe you're not going to do that, but do you understand where the trauma came from? Do you understand where the sorrow came from? Yeah, yeah. Your parents may not have been murdered in an alley, but if you've ever had to, as you got older, if your parents passed away, you still had that same feeling of loss, and especially for people who lost their parents when they were younger. So yeah, there's a lot more into it, and backstories are great. And yeah, Rachel's right. Don't give everything. I mean, readers can pick up from subtext anyway. You don't need to spell everything out. You can get bits from it. But I love backstory. I love learning about backstory.
And backstories are fun to write too, because you really can put your characters through hell and back again, and everything's hunky-dory because it's fiction. So hooray. But with that said, your characters should also have distinct personalities and emotions, because even though they're fictional, even though it's black and white on paper, they still need to be real in that front. I mean, everybody has different personalities, everybody has emotions. We all go through them. It's normal, it's natural, and it's relatable. Haha. And those personalities come from the backstory. They come from that internal conflict because their personality will change from start to finish, depending on what they go through throughout the plot, throughout the novel. Their personality is going to change. Their beliefs are going to change. Their morals are going to change. All of it is going to go through some sort of transformation. It doesn't have to change positively. It doesn't have to change negatively, but it will be different because that's the whole point of character development. It's character growth. And we in real life go through that. We are very different people now than when we were this time just a year ago. And it's the same thing for characters. And all of the things that make us human, such as those motivations, those flaws, our backstory, our internal conflict, all of that works together to make a character who they are. And there are so many things about that that will be relatable to many readers. And I also want to add, this is something that I forgot to mention with the internal conflict. You obviously have the external conflict on top of that. And basically, whatever is going on in the story, what the plot, depending on what the plot is, how that your character reacts to that will coincide with their internal conflict and their personality and their backstory. And the external conflict, why I'm not really talking about that, is because we're not fighting dragons or anything like that. So the external conflict that your character is going through, that isn't going to be related, but how your character reacts to it, that is relatable or should be relatable to your readers. Hopefully that all made sense.
No, that's it, exactly. It's not about what the character is, they could be about to rule the world, but the connectivity of it is the parents' expectations and pressures to put on them to be achieving this greatness and to taking on this. And if you've ever been one of the, the eldest or the one that's considered gifted, that's often having a lot of pressure put on them, you will understand that feeling. There will be things, and that's the thing with the novels. If you go, it's like, it may be a big novel, it might be a big epic with all this stuff going on, but if you drill down to the core, the feeling, the experiences are often pretty basic. You might have the spy master who's been, ninjaing around everywhere. Maybe they're coming to the end of their life. Few people have gone around spy mastering and ninjaing. But maybe if nobody knew who you were because you were a spy master, you're getting older and you're feeling lonely and isolated. I think we've all felt that. And especially as we get older, that sadly, loneliness and isolation becomes more prevalent. At the center, stories have these core points. So, and it usually breaks down to an emotion, which can tie to a backstory or a conflict. It can tie to a vulnerability, things like fear and anger, goals and motivations, that's perseverance and determination, or even fear that you're not going to be able to manage them. So a lot of it comes down to grief and love and betrayal and sorrow, sacrifice, loneliness, joy. And that's a good thing. If you can look at the story and then drill down, it's like, what is the singular intense emotion that comes from the scene, the character, the story overall? That's what you're trying to get through to the characters. That's what you're trying to get through to the readers. You want them to feel that, maybe a sense of hopelessness. Who hasn't felt that at times? Maybe a sense of unsurety in your own abilities. We're not running. Well, me and Rachel are not leading armies. I can't say it because obviously with what's going on in the world, I'm sure somebody's out there doing it. We're not leading armies, but we felt pressure. We felt worry about where things are going. Those are relatable. That's what you're looking at. So you're not going, oh yes, everyone rides dragons and everyone deep sea dives into the trenches and finds the monsters. No, we don't do that. But we do know what grief feels like. And we do know what loneliness feels like, and sorrow, and happiness. Hopefully, let's have some positive emotions like love and happiness and joy. So that's what you're looking for. That's what you're trying to connect with the reader.
I think Ari explained that perfectly. I couldn't have explained that any better. But yeah, it really does come down to emotion, because emotions are the major themes of most books. If you really think about it, it does come down to emotion. And you're going to have varying degrees of those emotions. As Ari said, just using her example with the pressure of running an army, that is going to be vastly different from you having pressure to meet a deadline at work. It's going to feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, sure, but it's not as big of a deal as you think it is, and hence internal conflict. it all ties back in together. And I think some of these scenarios, some of these books, the emotions, they're not always going to be easy for the reader to get through. It doesn't matter if they can relate to it on a high scale or if they relate to it just a little bit. Sometimes it's not going to be easy for them to read. And I mean, that's kind of a good thing, because this is all stuff that we go through, and it's all things that we need to figure out how to persevere through, like on our own or together in real life, whatever. And I think seeing fictional characters go through these things and getting over it, that really helps a person, a human real life person, to get through these things on their own. The fiction part is just there to make it a little more fun and a little less dramatic, and to make readers feel okay about going through those things on their own. And to keep track of those, I just want to make a quick point that to keep track of all of the things that your characters are going through and how to make them relatable to your readers is you keep character profiles and notes on these characters. And these can be fun extras for your readers. You don't need to share absolutely everything about their character profile. I'm not going to get too into it because we have talked about character profiles on the podcast before. If I remember, I'll link to that episode in the description below, so you can go listen to it if you haven't already. But yeah, it's good to keep notes so that you can remember everything about your character and make sure that they sound human enough that your readers can follow them throughout the story well enough.
I concur.
Beautiful. I love that. I love a happy ending. So before we leave, I do just want to end this on a high note, that essentially when you're creating a relatable character, you want to give your readers someone to look up to. And I've mentioned it before that they won't relate to everyone, obviously, or your characters won't relate to every reader, or your readers won't be able to relate to every single character. But if your character can touch the lives of a few real life people, then you've succeeded. So before we leave, if you want to learn more about us, the podcast, and opportunities to be a guest on the show, don't forget to check out our website at themerrywriterpodcast.podbean.com. And now we'll turn it over to you guys. How do you make your characters relatable? Let us know your answers in the comments so we can chat about it. Remember, we release a new episode every Wednesday. Next week, we're discussing the results of our latest writing challenge. So to ensure you don't miss it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out. As always, thanks for listening to the Merry Writer Podcast. See you next week. This podcast is brought to you by Thought-Provoking Questions, because we overthink things. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.